that ends up being a very complicated situation because, there are a multitude of different ways people could handle this. There are some founders, parents who take the position, this is a business I created and founded, and whether my kids are in the business or they're not in the business, it's an asset of my estate, and I'm just going to leave it to all my kids. And that's one approach to take. The problem there is the child or children in the business now have their siblings as shareholders, and depending upon who has voting control and what percentage of shares are owned by each, it could end up inhibiting and handicapping the child running the business to be able to do it the way they want to, and what kind of salary they take, and decisions about investing money in the business, they now have to answer to their siblings who may not even understand anything about the business. So that's one route parents could take. The other route a parent takes is, I'm going to leave the business to my child in the business, and I'm going to try to give other assets to my children that are not in the business. Well, the positive of that is now the child that's in the business gets to run the business the way they see fit, and they don't have to answer to their siblings who are not involved in the business as to how they run it and what kind of compensation they take. The problem with it is many times the business is the significant asset in the estate of the founder, and there isn't enough other assets to give to the other two child or children to treat them not necessarily equally, but fairly. And fairly is a word that everybody will view differently. What you as the father or mother may view as fair isn't necessarily what your child's going to view as fair who's not in the business. And it's certainly not going to be viewed fairly by the spouses of your child. And that could ultimately lead to friction and possibly jeopardize your relationship with your son or daughter, their spouse, and your grandchildren. Well, when you have two children in your business, it gets complicated because you, as the entrepreneur and founder, have ran this business and basically made every decision about the business. You didn't have to answer to anyone. If ultimately you leave it to two of your children, assuming that you give them equal shares, they could be deadlocked constantly as to how to run and manage this business, which you never had to deal with. If you decide to let one of the children either have the voting stock in the business or the majority ownership in the business, then the risk you have there is, how do you protect the other child? Because let's say I have a subchapter S corporation, and I'm the one running the company, and I have the voting rights. I could take all the profits out of the business as salary or take it out as perks and benefits to me. And basically, my sibling, although a shareholder, ends up not getting anything out of the business other than if I sell the business, and I'm going to be the one in control of that. So you have to be very careful in that scenario that you end up not either having a business that can't make any decisions or a business where one child really ends up controlling everything and the other child really just has a piece of paper. If you have three children involved in your business, then it gets even more complicated because then you could have two of your children constantly teaming up against the other child, which unfortunately does happen. And then all the decisions are made by those two children. They take out whatever kind of compensation they want in the business. They manage the business, run it the way they seem fit. And then you have the third child who really isn't protected there and has no way of having any control or say in anything that's done in the business. And sometimes what ends up happening, another scenario that ends up happening, is you have two kids in the business. One was in the business much longer, better equipped to run the business, makes more in compensation. Mom and dad die, leave the business 50-50 to the two of them. And now the one who was making less money knocks on the door of the other sibling and says, I'm a 50-50 owner of this business and I want to get paid the same amount of money as you. And I don't want you making decisions in this business that I don't have an equal say in. And that may not really be what the founder wanted, but when you leave it 50-50, those are some of the issues that come into play.